Sarah Chen stood in the center of the massive chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. The Galactic Council Hall stretched above her like a cathedral made of living crystal. Thousands of alien beings looked down at her from floating platforms that circled the room in perfect rings. Their eyes glowed with different colors: blue, green, red, and some colors that human eyes could not even see. She was the last human ambassador to stand in this place. After today, no human would ever be welcome here again. The speaker of the council was a Zephyrian named Kethvar. His body looked like a walking diamond with light flowing through his crystal skin. When he spoke, his voice echoed from every wall in the chamber. "Human Sarah Chen," Kethvar said, his words sharp as breaking glass. "You stand accused of representing a species that threatens the peace of our galaxy. How do you answer?" Sarah lifted her chin. She had practiced this moment for months, knowing it would come. The other human ambassadors had already been sent home. She was the last one, the final voice of Earth in this place. "I answer that humanity has done nothing wrong," she said. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber, even without the voice amplifiers that the aliens used. "We have followed every law. We have paid every tribute. We have answered every call for aid." A sound like rustling leaves filled the chamber. It was the sound of 1,000 Vorthan drones whispering to each other through their hive mind. Their queen, a massive creature with 6 arms and silver skin, leaned forward on her platform. "But you have not obeyed," Queen Sithka hissed. "When we assigned your species to the worker caste, you refused. When we told you to limit your breeding, you ignored us. When we ordered you to stop your expansion, you built more ships." Sarah nodded. "That is correct. We refused to be slaves." The word slaves hit the chamber like a thunderclap. Thousands of aliens began making noise at once. Some clicked their mandibles. Others flashed angry colors across their skin. A few species made sounds that were too low or too high for human ears to hear. Kethvar raised one crystal hand and silence fell immediately. "You see," he said to the assembled council. "They use words like weapons. They twist meaning to cause chaos. This is why humanity cannot remain part of our civilization." High above them all, floating in a sphere of pure energy, was the eldest member of the council. The Primarch called Voidsinger had been alive for over 10,000 years. When it spoke, reality seemed to bend around its words. "Young species Sarah Chen." The Primarch's voice seemed to come from inside her own head. "Your people have been part of our galaxy for only 50 of your short years. In that time you have caused more disruption than most species cause in 1,000 years. Why should we not remove this chaos from our perfect order?" Sarah looked up at the energy being. She knew that the Primarch could kill her with a thought. It could turn her atoms into light and scatter them across space, but she also knew that fear would not help her people now. "Because your perfect order is not perfect," she said. "It is built on keeping people down. You call species like ours young and treat us like children who can never grow up. You decide what jobs we can have, where we can live, how many children we can have. That is not order. That is control." The Primarch's energy form pulsed brighter. "And what would you have instead?" "Chaos, war?" "Choice," Sarah said simply. "The right for each person to choose their own path. The right for each species to grow and change and become whatever they can be. The right to be treated as equals, not as servants." A new voice spoke from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. General Thak Moore of the Hegemony military stepped forward. His species, the Cronin, looked like giant beetles made of black metal. He had led the Council's armies for 300 years. "And there is the proof of their danger," Thak Moore said, his voice like grinding gears. "They speak of equality, but they mean domination. They want to tear down everything we have built and remake the galaxy in their image." Sarah shook her head. "We do not want to rule anyone. We just want to be free." "Free to spread your chaos," Queen Sithka said. "Free to corrupt other species with your dangerous ideas. Free to upset the balance that has kept peace in this galaxy for 1,000 years." Kethvar stepped forward, his crystal body reflecting the lights of the chamber like a prism. "The human species has shown that it cannot be trusted to follow proper order," he announced. "They question authority. They refuse their assigned place. They spread discontent among other species. They represent everything that our civilization stands against." Sarah felt her heart sinking. She had known this was coming, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "Furthermore," Kethvar continued, "they are too violent. In their brief time among us, they have been involved in more conflicts than any 3 other species combined. They fight each other. They fight us. They fight anyone who stands in their way." "We fight for freedom," Sarah said. We fight to protect the innocent. We fight because sometimes fighting is the only way to stop something worse from happening. You fight because violence is in your nature, the Primarch said. You are predators pretending to be civilized. You are chaos wrapped in the illusion of order. General Thakmor clicked his mandibles in agreement. Their own history proves this. They have had thousands of wars on their homeworld. They have weapons that could destroy entire planets. They cannot even make peace among themselves, yet they expect us to trust them with the peace of the galaxy. Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew it would be useless. These beings had already made their decision. They were not here to listen to her words. They were here to make their judgment sound official. The Galactic Council has reached its decision, Kethvar announced. His words rang through the chamber with the weight of law. The human species is hereby expelled from galactic civilization. All human representatives must leave council space immediately. All human colonies outside their home system must be abandoned. All trade and communication between humans and council species is forbidden. The chamber erupted in noise again. Some species cheered. Others made sounds of disapproval. A few seemed surprised that it had actually happened. Sarah stood perfectly still in the center of it all. She had expected this, but it still felt like a punch to the stomach. Humanity was being cast out of the galaxy like criminals. Furthermore, Kethvar continued when the noise died down, any human ship found in council space after 30 standard days will be considered an act of war and dealt with accordingly. Any species that aids or trades with humanity will face similar punishment. You are condemning an entire species to isolation, Sarah said quietly. Billions of people who have done nothing wrong. We are protecting trillions of beings from a dangerous influence, Queen Sithka replied. Your species has proven that it cannot exist peacefully within civilized society. The Primarch's energy form pulsed once more. This decision is final. The human species is exiled from the galactic community. They will have no voice in the council. They will have no protection under galactic law. They will have no claim to any worlds beyond their home system. General Thakmor stepped forward again, and let this be a warning to any other species that might be tempted to follow the human example. The council maintains order. Those who disrupt that order will be removed. Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. Thousands of alien faces looked back at her. Some seemed sad. Others appeared relieved. Most just looked indifferent, as if they were watching something unimportant happen to someone they did not care about. She thought about her daughter back on Earth. Maria was only 10 years old, but she was already asking questions about why some people got to make decisions and others had to follow them. Sarah wondered what kind of galaxy Maria would inherit. Would it be one where humans were forever outcasts, or would it be something different? The human ambassador will now leave this chamber and never return, Kethvar declared. Guards will escort her to her ship. 4 Kronan soldiers stepped forward. They were each twice Sarah's size, their black metal shells gleaming under the chamber lights. But they did not grab her or point weapons at her. They simply waited for her to walk. Sarah straightened her shoulders and began walking toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence of the chamber. Every alien eye followed her as she moved. As she reached the great doors, she stopped and turned back. The entire Galactic Council waited to see what she would do. You think you are protecting the galaxy from us? She said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. But you are making a mistake. You are not casting out dangerous animals. You are setting free the one species that knows how to turn exile into opportunity. You are not weakening us. You are forcing us to become stronger. She paused, looking directly at the Primarch's energy form. And when we return, and we will return, we will not be the same species that you are throwing out today. We will be something you cannot imagine, something you cannot control, something you will wish you had treated as equals when you had the chance. The silence in the chamber was complete. Not a single alien made a sound. Sarah turned and walked through the doors. The Kronan guards followed her down the long corridors of the council station. Her ship waited in the docking bay, a small human vessel surrounded by the massive warships of the council fleet. As her ship pulled away from the station and turned toward the edge of council space, Sarah looked back through the window. The station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the darkness. She activated her communication system and sent a message to Earth. "This is Ambassador Chen," she said into the recorder. "I am coming home. The Council has made their choice. Now humanity must make ours." She closed the channel and set course for Earth. Behind her, the lights of galactic civilization faded into the distance. Ahead lay the dark unknown, where exiled humanity would have to find its own way. The Council thought they had solved their human problem. They had no idea that they had just created something far more dangerous than any problem they could imagine. They had given humanity the one thing that made them unstoppable, a reason to prove everyone wrong. The exile ships were already leaving Earth orbit by the time Sarah's message reached home. Thousands of human vessels carrying millions of people, spread out across the dark spaces beyond Council control. They carried with them their technologies, their dreams, their anger, and most importantly, their refusal to accept defeat. The Galactic Council had made their choice. Now the real story could begin. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile, and Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory aboard the orbital station above New Harmony. Through the transparent walls, she could see the planet below, a world that had not existed on any galactic map when humanity first arrived here. Now it was home to 12 million people. Elena's hands moved quickly across the holographic display in front of her. Numbers and equations flowed like water, showing the results of decades of research. She was close to something that could change everything. So close she could almost taste it. Dr. Vasquez, her assistant, called from across the lab. The test results from the quantum tunnel experiment are ready. Elena hurried over to the data station. David Park, her young assistant, pulled up the readings on his screen. His face was excited but trying to stay professional. The tunneling drive worked perfectly, David said. We achieved stable penetration of quantum space for 47 seconds. The test ship traveled 16 light-years in that time. Elena stared at the numbers. 16 light-years in under a minute. The fastest Council ships could barely manage 1 light-year per hour, using their gravity distortion drives. This was not just better, it was revolutionary. Are you certain these readings are correct? She asked. David nodded enthusiastically. I ran the test 3 times. The quantum tunnel is stable. The ship emerged exactly where we calculated, and there was no damage to the vessel or its crew. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. 50 years ago, when the Council exiled humanity, they had cut them off from galactic technology and trade. Humans had been forced to develop everything themselves. Most species would have stagnated or died out. But humanity had done what it always did when faced with impossible odds. They had innovated. Contact Admiral Torres, Elena said. Tell him we need to meet immediately, and get me a secure channel to the other colony worlds. They need to know about this. While David made the calls, Elena walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the galactic rim, was the Council and their perfect civilization. They probably thought humanity was long dead by now. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Marcus Torres arrived at the station within 6 hours. At 91 years old, he was one of the few people left who remembered Earth before the exile. His hair was white and his face was lined with wrinkles, but his eyes were still sharp as laser beams. Show me, he said without any greeting. Elena led him to the main lab and activated the holographic display. The quantum tunneling equations filled the air between them, along with video footage of the test ship disappearing and reappearing 16 light-years away. Torres studied the data for several minutes without speaking. He had been an engineer before he became an admiral, and he understood what he was looking at. How long before we can build full-sized ships with this technology? He asked. 6 months for a prototype, Elena replied. Maybe a year for mass production. Torres nodded slowly. And you are certain this will work for larger vessels? Ships carrying thousands of people? The mathematics scale up perfectly. In theory, we could move an entire fleet instantaneously across hundreds of light-years. The old admiral walked to the window and looked out at the stars, just as Elena had done earlier. 50 years, he said quietly. 50 years since they threw us out like garbage. 50 years of scraping by on the edge of nowhere, building everything from scratch, losing people to hostile worlds and failed experiments. And now we can go anywhere we want in the galaxy, Elena finished. Faster than anyone has ever traveled before. Torres turned back to her. Have you thought about what this means? Really thought about it? Elena frowned. It means we can finally explore beyond the local systems. We can find new worlds, new resources. We can spread out across the galaxy. It means more than that, Torres said. It means we are no longer trapped. The Council thought they were putting us in a cage. Instead, they gave us time to develop something they cannot match. When they exiled us, their fastest ships could barely outrun ours. Now we can travel at speeds they cannot even imagine. Elena began to understand what the Admiral was thinking. The implications were staggering. But there is something else we need to consider, Torres continued. We are not the only species the Council has exiled over the years. There are others out there in the dark, cast out for being too violent or too independent or too different. Elena had heard the stories. The Skarn, a warrior species exiled for refusing to limit their military. The Nexari, master inventors exiled for developing technologies the Council considered dangerous. The Voidwalkers, deep space explorers exiled for going where they were not supposed to go. You think we should find them? Elena said. I think we should offer them what the Council never did, Torres replied. Partnership, equality, the chance to be part of something better. Elena nodded. It made sense. Humanity had learned a lot in 50 years of exile. They had learned that cooperation worked better than domination. They had learned that different perspectives made them stronger. Most importantly, they had learned that being cast out was not the end, it was just a new beginning. I will start preparing the ships, she said. 3 months later, the first quantum tunnel ship left New Harmony's orbit. The HSV Pathfinder was a small vessel, designed for long-range exploration and first contact. Captain Jake Harrison commanded her, along with a crew of 60 specialists from across human space. Jake was young for a captain, only 35 years old. But he had grown up in exile, born on a colony ship between the stars. To him, the galaxy was not a place ruled by the Council. It was a vast frontier waiting to be explored. The Pathfinder's first destination was a red dwarf system called Kethvar's Shame, named sarcastically after the Zephyrian who had pronounced humanity's exile. Long-range sensors had detected signs of industrial activity there, but no Council presence. It was exactly the kind of place where exiled species might end up. The quantum tunnel activated with a sound like reality tearing apart. Space folded in on itself, creating a passage through dimensions that normal physics said should not exist. The Pathfinder slipped through the tunnel like a needle through cloth, and emerged 1,600 light-years away in less than 2 minutes. Incredible, whispered Jake's science officer, Commander Lisa Zhang. We just crossed a distance that would take a Council ship 6 months to travel. Jake smiled. And we are just getting started. Sensors, what do you see? The sensor operator, Lieutenant Mike O'Brien, studied his displays. I am reading multiple artificial satellites around the 4th planet, also detecting radio transmissions and what looks like antimatter signatures from spacecraft drives. Any sign they have noticed us? Jake asked. Not yet, Captain. We emerged behind the system's outer moon. They probably cannot see us from here. Jake activated the ship's communication array. This is Captain Jake Harrison of the Human Colonial Alliance ship Pathfinder. We are peaceful explorers looking for others who have been cast out by the Galactic Council. If anyone is listening, please respond. They waited in silence for several minutes. Then the communication system crackled to life. Human ship, a voice said in accented but understandable English. This is War Leader Grakth of the Skarn clans. You say you are exiles like us. Prove it, Jake smiled. The Skarn were known for being direct. We were exiled 50 years ago for refusing to accept the Council's caste system, he said. We were told we were too violent and too chaotic for civilized society. Since then, we have built our own civilization in the outer systems. We come seeking allies, not subjects. There was another long pause. Then the Skarn voice came back, but it sounded different now. Less suspicious, more curious. Humans are the species that told the Primarchs they were wrong, Grakth said. We heard stories but thought they were myths. You really stood up to the energy beings. We did, Jake replied. And they threw us out for it. Just like they threw you out for being warriors. Come to the 4th planet, Grakth said. But come slowly and keep your weapons powered down. My people are cautious, with strangers. The Pathfinder approached the Skarn world carefully. Jake could see why the Council had been afraid of them. Their orbital stations were armed fortresses, bristling with weapon systems. Their ships looked like flying castles made of black metal and sharp angles. But as Jake met with War Leader Grakth on the planet's surface, he discovered something the Council had missed. The Skarn were not mindless killers. They were protectors. Their warrior culture existed to defend the weak and innocent. They had been exiled because they refused to let the Council decide who was worth protecting. Your people and mine have something in common, Jake told Grath as they walked through the Skarn city. We were both thrown away because we would not be what others wanted us to be. Grath, who stood 8 feet tall and looked like a cross between a bear and a rhinoceros, nodded his massive head. The council wanted us to be soldiers who killed on command. When we said we would only fight to protect the innocent, they called us dangerous and uncontrolled. And now? Jake asked. Now we protect our own people and any others who ask for our help. We have saved 17 different species from pirates and slavers in the past 20 years. The council never thanked us for any of it. Jake smiled. What would you say if I told you there was a better way? A way for all the exiled species to work together instead of hiding alone in the dark? Grath stopped walking and looked at him with interest. I would say that sounds like something worth fighting for. Over the next 2 years, the Pathfinder and other human ships made contact with dozens of exiled species across the galactic rim. The Nexari, whose individuals were enhanced with technology that let them interface directly with machines. The Voidwalkers, whose natural ability to navigate hyperspace made them the best pilots in the galaxy. The Etherians, energy beings who had been exiled for refusing to merge with the Primarch Collective. Each species had been cast out for the same reason. They would not conform to the Council's rigid system. They would not accept their assigned place in the galactic hierarchy. They had wanted to be more than what others decided they could be. And each species that joined the growing alliance brought something new. The Skarn brought their warrior skills and their code of protection. The Nexari brought advanced technology and manufacturing techniques. The Voidwalkers brought their navigation abilities and knowledge of hidden hyperspace routes. The Etherians brought wisdom and powerful abilities to manipulate energy. But it was humanity that brought the thing that made it all work. The ability to see past differences and build bridges between species. Where the Council saw only categories and castes, humans saw individuals with unlimited potential. Where the Council demanded conformity, humans celebrated diversity. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood once again in her laboratory, but now it was not alone. Similar labs existed on 100 different worlds across the outer galaxy, staffed by humans and aliens working side by side. The quantum tunnel technology had been shared freely with all Alliance members, and each species had contributed their own improvements. The new hyperspace mapping project is complete, David Park announced. He was older now, with gray in his hair, but still her most trusted assistant. We have charted safe tunnel routes across the entire outer rim. Elena nodded as she studied the star maps. The Alliance now controlled space across thousands of light years. Not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and mutual aid. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together as equals. And the latest reports from the scout ships? She asked. David's expression grew serious. 3 more Council patrol fleets have been spotted near the rim territories. Intelligence suggests they are looking for something. Elena knew what they were looking for. 50 years of exile had not hidden humanity forever. Stories traveled, even across the vast distances of space. Stories of the exiled species working together. Stories of new technologies and impossible speeds. Stories of a growing power in the darkness beyond the galactic edge. The Council was starting to notice that their discarded problems had become something they had never expected. Not a scattered group of broken outcasts, but a unified alliance of species who had learned to turn their differences into strengths. Send a message to Admiral Torres, Elena said. Tell him it is time for the next phase of our plan. Outside the laboratory window, the stars looked different now. They were no longer distant lights in an empty void. They were destinations, connected by quantum tunnels that could carry ships instantly across impossible distances. They were homes to millions of free beings who had chosen cooperation over conquest. The Council had exiled them to the darkness. But humanity and its allies had turned that darkness into the foundation of something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would soon be ready to emerge from the shadows and show the Council what they had really created when they cast out those who refused to bow. President Maria Santos stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall on New Geneva, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible just 10 years ago. Before her sat representatives from 47 different species, all equal members of the Human Colonial Alliance. Skarn warriors sat next to delicate Etherian energy forms. Nexari cyber-enhanced individuals shared data streams with Voidwalker navigators. Human diplomats worked alongside alien thinkers, whose minds processed information in ways no Human could understand. It was the first interspecies assembly in galactic history where every voice had equal weight. Maria was Sarah Chen's daughter, now 58 years old and carrying the weight of leading humanity's greatest experiment. She had been 10 when her mother delivered the Council's Exiled decree. She had grown up watching humanity build something new from nothing. "My friends," Maria began, her words translated instantly into 46 different languages by Nexari communication technology. "We gather today not as conquered peoples hiding in the dark, but as free beings choosing our own destiny. We gather not as the discarded refuse of a dying system, but as the foundation of something better." The assembly responded with sounds of approval that ranged from human applause to Skarn war cries to the harmonic resonance of Etherian agreement. Each species showed support in their own way, but the meaning was universal. Maria touched a control on the podium and a holographic star map appeared above the assembly. It showed the outer rim of the galaxy, where red dots marked the locations of Alliance worlds. 25 years ago we were scattered survivors, she continued. Today we control territory spanning 8,000 light years. We have built cities on dead worlds, turned asteroids into factories, and created trade routes through regions of space that the Council considers impassable. War Leader Grakth of the Skarn stood up from his seat. At nearly 9 feet tall and covered in natural armor plating, he was an impressive figure even in a room full of diverse aliens. "The Alliance has given my people something the Council never offered." His translator device converted his growling voice into smooth diplomatic language. "The right to protect without permission. In the past 5 years, Skarn fleets have rescued 43 worlds from pirate attacks and corporate exploitation. Not because we were ordered to, but because it was right." Sitting nearby, Nexari Representative Zix 421 activated her cybernetic implants, causing her eyes to glow blue as she accessed data files. "The Nexari contribution to Alliance technology has exceeded all projections," she said in her electronic voice. "Integration of our neural interfaces with human quantum tunnel drives has increased travel speed by 300%. Our manufacturing centers now produce goods that surpass anything in Council space." Elder Wisp of Stars. The Etherian delegate shimmered as they changed form from a cloud of glowing particles into a roughly humanoid shape. "Our people have found purpose we lost millennia ago," the energy being communicated directly into the minds of the assembled delegates. "For too long we existed without direction. Humanity has shown us that wisdom without action is meaningless. Together we have mapped hyperspace routes that even the Primarchs cannot follow." Maria nodded to each speaker, feeling the pride and determination that filled the room. But she also felt the weight of responsibility. The Alliance had grown beyond anyone's expectations, and that growth had not gone unnoticed. "Which brings us to the reason for today's special session," Maria said, her tone becoming serious. "General Chen Wei will present the latest intelligence reports." General Chen Wei, Sarah Chen's granddaughter and head of Alliance Intelligence, activated another holographic display. This one showed the border regions where Alliance space met the edge of Council territory. "Council surveillance has increased dramatically in the past 6 months," Chen Wei reported. "Long-range monitoring stations have been established at key hyperspace junction points. Scout ships have been probing our outer defenses. Most significantly, we have detected 3 major fleet buildups in Council space, each positioned to strike at our core systems." The assembly grew quiet. Everyone had known this moment would come eventually. The Alliance had grown too large and too successful to remain hidden forever. Voidwalker Navigator Prime Drifts Between spoke next, their voice like wind through crystal caves. "Our deep space scouts report unusual movement in the Council's diplomatic corps as well. Emergency sessions have been called. Messages are being sent to every member species. They are planning something significant." Maria felt her stomach tighten. She had hoped they would have more time to prepare, more time to build their strength. But it seemed the Council had finally decided to take action against the growing alliance of exiles. "What are our options?" asked Representative Keth Nor of the Hegemony Resistance. The Hegemony had been the Council's military arm until a rebellion split them apart 20 years ago. Those who joined the alliance brought extensive knowledge of Council tactics and technology. Chen Wei manipulated the holographic display to show alliance fleet positions. "We have significant advantages in speed and mobility thanks to quantum tunnel technology. Our ships can strike anywhere in the galaxy within hours. We also have better coordination between species. Our diversity is a tactical asset where the Council's rigid hierarchy is a weakness. But, Maria prompted, sensing there was more. But they have numbers, Chen Wei admitted. The Council can field 10,000 warships. We have maybe 800, even counting all our allies. They also have resources we cannot match. Entire star systems dedicated to military production. Populations in the trillions to draw personnel from. War Leader Gracht slammed his massive fist on his chair's armrest. Numbers mean nothing if the enemy cannot catch you to fight. Skarn warriors have won battles against forces 10 times our size through superior tactics and fighting spirit. The Skarn enthusiasm for battle is noted, said Nexari Representative Zix 421, her cybernetic implants flickering. However, tactical analysis suggests that direct military confrontation would result in unacceptable casualties. We should consider alternative approaches. Elder Wisp of Stars shifted form again, becoming more solid and defined. There may be options beyond warfare. My people have maintained communication with certain elements within Council space. Not all species are happy with the current system. Maria leaned forward with interest. Explain. The Council's rigid hierarchy has created tensions that have been growing for decades, the Etherian continued. Species assigned to worker castes question why they cannot advance. Military species wonder why they serve a civilian government that treats them as tools. Even some member species of the Council itself have expressed doubts privately. Chen Wei nodded. Our intelligence networks have confirmed this. There have been protests on 17 Council worlds in the past year. Labor strikes on manufacturing planets. Even some military units have refused certain orders. Maria began to see the possibilities. They are facing internal pressure. If we add external pressure at the right time, the entire system could collapse, Representative Keth Nor finished. His experience with the Hegemony Rebellion had taught him how quickly authoritarian systems could fall when their contradictions became too obvious to ignore. Voidwalker Navigator. Prime drifts between made a sound like singing crystals, which their translator converted to words. Our hyperspace routes could allow us to make contact with resistance groups throughout Council space. We could offer them what we offer everyone, partnership instead of domination. War Leader Gracht growled approvingly. And if the Council tries to stop us, we show them what happens when free beings fight for something they believe in, instead of fighting because they are ordered to. Maria looked around the assembly. Representatives from dozens of species, each one cast out by the Council for refusing to conform, now working together as equals. It was proof that the Council's system was not just wrong, it was unnecessary. Then we are agreed, she said. We will not hide any longer. We will not wait for them to attack us. We will take our message of freedom to every species in the galaxy and let them choose for themselves. The assembly erupted in approval. Sounds of agreement echoed from every corner of the hall. Human cheers, Skarn battle roars, Nexari electronic harmonics, Etherian mind music, and dozens of other expressions of determination. But even as the assembly celebrated their decision, Maria felt a chill of concern. They were about to challenge the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. The Council had ruled for over 1,000 years. They would not give up their power without a fight. Over the following weeks, Alliance ships began appearing throughout Council space. They did not attack military targets or threaten civilian populations. Instead, they broadcasted messages on every available frequency. People of the galaxy, the message began. You have been told that there is only one way to organize civilization. You have been told that some species are meant to rule and others are meant to serve. You have been told that questioning authority leads to chaos and war. The message continued with images of Alliance worlds, humans and Skarn working together to build cities, Nexari and Etherians sharing knowledge to advance science, Voidwalkers and former Hegemony officers cooperating to explore new regions of space. We are proof that another way is possible. We are proof that cooperation works better than domination. We are proof that freedom creates strength, not weakness. The Council's response was immediate and predictable. They jammed communication frequencies. They sent warships to hunt down Alliance vessels. They declared the broadcasts to be terrorist propaganda designed to destabilize galactic civilization. But the messages had already been heard, and on world after world, Species that had never questioned the Council's authority began to ask why some beings got to make all the decisions, while others had to follow orders. On the industrial world of Keth Prime, Zephyrian workers stopped their crystal growing operations and demanded to know why they could not advance beyond their assigned caste. When Zephyrian supervisors could not provide a satisfactory answer, the workers organized a strike. In the hegemony core systems, Cronin military units began questioning orders to suppress peaceful protests. Some officers openly defected to join the alliance, others simply refused to fire on civilians. Even among the Vorthan hive species, individual drones began breaking away from their queens and thinking for themselves. The concept of individual choice, so foreign to their collective consciousness, spread through their society like a virus. President Maria Santos stood once again in the Great Assembly Hall. But this time the holographic display showed not just Alliance territory, but resistance movements throughout Council space. "The galaxy is waking up," she announced to the assembled delegates. "The Council's 1,000-year reign of rigid control is ending. Not because we destroyed it, but because we offered something better." General Chen Wei activated new intelligence reports. Council fleet movements have become erratic. Some units are refusing orders. Others are requesting reassignment away from anti-resistance operations. Their command structure is breaking down as species question why they should fight to maintain a system that treats them as inferiors. War leader Gracht stood up, but this time his voice was quiet and thoughtful rather than booming with battle fury. "My people have fought many wars," he said. "We have won victories through strength of arms and courage in battle. But this is a different kind of victory. This is winning by showing others that they do not have to fight at all. They just have to choose to be free." Maria nodded. The Alliance had achieved something unprecedented. They had started a revolution without firing a shot. Not a revolution of violence and destruction, but a revolution of hope and possibility. But she also knew that the Council would not give up easily. Desperate powers often turn to desperate measures. The real test was still to come. "Prepare for the Council's response," she told the Assembly. "They will not let their system collapse without a fight. When that fight comes, we must be ready to defend not just our own freedom, but the freedom of every being in the galaxy who chooses to join us." The assembled delegates responded with determination. They had spent decades building something better than the Council's rigid hierarchy. Now they would have to prove that it was also stronger. Outside the Great Assembly Hall, Alliance fleets prepared for battle. But they were not preparing to conquer or destroy. They were preparing to protect the right of every species, every individual, every thinking being in the galaxy to choose their own destiny. The Council had exiled them for being too dangerous to their perfect order. They had been right about the danger but wrong about everything else. Humanity and its allies were not dangerous because they brought chaos. They were dangerous because they brought choice. And choice, once offered, was the most powerful force in the universe. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the command bridge of the HSV Defiance, watching Earth grow larger through the viewport. At 115 years old, he was kept alive by Nexari medical technology and Etherian energy treatments, but his mind was still sharp as a quantum blade. He had waited 75 years for this moment. "Sir," called Commander Lisa Zhang, now his fleet operations officer. "Long-range sensors detect the Council Armada, 1,800 ships, led by the Primarch dreadnought Eternal Dominion." Torres nodded without taking his eyes off Earth. The blue planet looked exactly as he remembered from his youth, before humanity was cast into exile. But the space around it had changed dramatically. Orbital defense platforms ringed the planet like a crown of stars. Each platform bristled with weapons that combined human engineering, Skarn military doctrine, Nexari targeting systems, and Etherian energy manipulation. "And our fleet status?" Torres asked. 943 ships from 17 different Alliance species, Zhang reported. "All quantum tunnel drives fully operational. All crews at battle stations," Torres smiled grimly. The Council probably expected to find a primitive, defenseless world protected by obsolete human technology. Instead, they would face the combined might of the Alliance. Technologies and tactics that had been perfected through decades of cooperation between species the Council had thrown away. "Open a channel to all Alliance ships," Torres commanded. "Channel open." "Sir." Torres activated his communication system, knowing his words would reach not just his fleet, but every Alliance world across the galaxy. People of the Alliance, he began. Today we return to the world where humanity began. We do not come as conquerors seeking revenge. We come as free beings defending the right of every species to choose their own destiny. The Council calls us chaos and disorder. Today we show them the true strength that comes from unity built on choice rather than force. Throughout the fleet, crew members from dozens of species prepared for battle. In the engine rooms, Nexari technicians interfaced directly with quantum tunnel drives that could move ships across the galaxy in moments. On the weapons decks, Skarn warriors checked targeting systems that combined their martial expertise with Alliance technology. In the navigation centers, Voidwalker pilots calculated hyperspace, routes that would let Alliance ships strike from directions the Council could never predict. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a massive wall of ships arranged in the rigid battle patterns that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries. At the center of the formation was the Eternal Dominion, a vessel so large it cast shadows on entire continents. Torres studied the enemy fleet through his tactical displays. He recognized the ship types from his youth, Zephyrian crystal cruisers that could focus energy beams with perfect precision, Vorthan swarm ships that attacked like clouds of angry insects, Kronan battleships built like flying fortresses, and at their head the Primarch dreadnought that channeled the power of beings who had existed since the galaxy was young. Incoming transmission from the Council. Fleet, reported Lieutenant O'Brien at the communications station. Put it through, Torres ordered. The holographic display filled with the image of General Thakmor, the same Kronan officer who had spoken at humanity's exile 75 years ago. He looked exactly the same. His species aged slowly, and his black metal carapace showed no signs of wear. Human Admiral, Thakmor said, his voice still like grinding gears. You and your alien allies will withdraw from this system immediately. Earth has been quarantined by order of the Galactic Council. Any ships remaining in this system will be destroyed. Torres stepped forward so that his own image would be clearly visible to the Council fleet. General Thakmor, he replied calmly, I remember you from the day you helped exile my species for the crime of refusing to be slaves. How ironic that you now command a fleet of enslaved soldiers to attack the world where freedom was reborn. Thakmor's mandibles clicked in anger.
You spread chaos throughout the galaxy.
Dozens of worlds have fallen to rebellion because of your terrorist propaganda. The Council will restore order. The Council will try, Torres agreed. But let me ask you something, General. How many of your own officers have defected to join us? How many of your soldiers have refused orders to fire on civilians? How many of your own people have begun to question why they serve masters who treat them as tools instead of beings? The connection went silent for several seconds. Torres knew he had struck home. Intelligence reports indicated that the Council military was fracturing as species questioned their place in the hierarchy. The time for words is over, Thakmor finally said. Surrender now or be destroyed, Torres smiled. Then let us see which is stronger, order imposed by force or unity chosen freely. The transmission ended and both fleets began moving toward each other. The Council ships advanced in their traditional formations, weapon systems charging according to thousand-year-old battle doctrines. The Alliance fleet scattered into smaller groups, using quantum tunnel drives to appear and disappear across the battlefield like ghosts. The first exchange of fire lit up space between Earth and Luna. Council energy beams lanced out with perfect precision, only to strike empty space where Alliance ships had been moments before. In response, Alliance vessels appeared behind enemy formations, striking with coordinated attacks that combined the best tactics of 17 different species. Torres watched as the battle unfolded exactly as Alliance strategists had predicted. The Council fleet was powerful but rigid. They fought according to established patterns that had worked for centuries against enemies who followed similar doctrines. The Alliance fought with creativity and adaptability that the Council could not match. A group of Skarn heavy cruisers appeared directly above a Vorthan swarm cluster, their shields configured to resist the biological acid weapons that swarm ships used. Before the Vorthans could adapt, Nexari electronic warfare specialists jammed their hive mind communications, leaving individual drone ships confused and directionless. Meanwhile, Etherian-enhanced human ships phased partially into hyperspace, allowing them to pass through solid matter. They materialized inside the shields of Zephyrian crystal cruisers, delivering devastating close-range attacks before disappearing again. Voidwalker navigators guided Alliance strike teams through dimensional folds that let them attack from directions that normal physics said were impossible. Council ships found themselves under fire from above, below, and from angles that their sensors could not even detect. But the real shock came when elements of the Council fleet began switching sides in the middle of the battle. A squadron of Kronan destroyers suddenly turned their weapons on their own command ship. 3 Zephyrian cruisers broke formation and began broadcasting Alliance messages on all frequencies. Even some Vorthon drones began thinking for themselves and abandoning their hive clusters. "Sir," called Commander Zhang. "The Eternal Dominion is moving directly toward Earth. The Primarch is trying to bypass the battle and attack the planet directly." Torres nodded grimly. He had expected this. When rigid systems faced challenges they could not handle through normal means, they often resorted to desperate measures. "All Alliance ships, implement Protocol 7, he ordered. "Protect Earth at all costs." Protocol 7 was the Alliance's ultimate defensive strategy. Every ship with quantum tunnel capability converged on a single point, creating a wall of vessels between the attacking force and their target. It was dangerous. Ships appearing so close together risked collisions or interference between their drive systems. But it was also the fastest way to concentrate maximum firepower. The space around Earth filled with Alliance vessels as ships tunneled in from across the solar system. Human destroyers appeared alongside Skarn battlecruisers. Nexari tech ships materialized next to Etherian energy forms. Voidwalker scout vessels emerged from hyperspace carrying weapons far larger than their size should have allowed. The Eternal Dominion kept coming. The massive dreadnought was larger than most space stations, its hull crackling with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. The Primarch aboard the ship was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, possessing power that could reshape reality itself. "All ships concentrate fire on the dreadnought," Torres commanded. Hundreds of Alliance vessels opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, quantum torpedoes, and weapons that existed in multiple dimensions at once converged on the Eternal Dominion. The ship's shields flared with colors that had no names, absorbing energies that should have been able to destroy entire fleets. But the Alliance had learned something in their decades of exile. No defense was perfect, and no enemy was invincible. They had studied every piece of Council technology they could acquire. They had analyzed every battle recording from the past century. They knew the weaknesses in even the most powerful ships. Nexari hacker specialists found flaws in the dreadnought's shield harmonics. Skarn tacticians identified the optimal angles of attack. Etherian energy manipulators created interference patterns that disrupted the Primarch's reality-bending abilities. Human strategists coordinated it all into a single, overwhelming assault. The Eternal Dominion's shields collapsed in a cascade of failing energy. The great ship shuddered as Alliance weapons found their mark, tearing through armor that had been forged in the first days of galactic civilization. But the Primarch was not finished. The ancient energy being abandoned its physical ship, expanding into a form that filled space for thousands of kilometers. Its voice echoed across every communication channel simultaneously. "Mortals," the Primarch spoke with the weight of eons. "You defy the natural order. You bring chaos to perfection. You must be ended." The space around Earth began to twist as the Primarch exerted its power. Reality itself bent under the strain as the ancient being tried to unmake the Alliance fleet through sheer force of will. Torres felt his ship groaning under stresses that normal matter was never meant to endure. Around him, crew members from multiple species worked desperately to keep their vessel intact as space-time itself became a weapon against them. But then something unexpected happened. Elder Wisp of Stars, the Etherian delegate who had joined the Alliance decades ago, suddenly expanded their own energy form. Other Etherians throughout the fleet did the same, creating a network of energy beings that surrounded the hostile Primarch. "Ancient One," Wisp of Stars communicated on frequencies that only energy beings could perceive. "You cling to a system that serves only itself. We have found something better. We have found purpose in cooperation, strength in diversity, joy in freedom. Join us or be left behind by history." The Primarch's assault faltered as it found itself facing not primitive mortals, but fellow energy beings who had chosen a different path. For the first time in millennia, it encountered something it had never expected: beings like itself who rejected the rigid hierarchy it had helped create. Around them, the battle continued to turn in the Alliance's favor. More Council ships were switching sides or simply withdrawing from combat. The rigid formation that had seemed so impressive was collapsing as individual commanders realized they were fighting to maintain a system that treated them as expendable tools. General Thakmore's voice crackled over the communication channels, but now it sounded desperate rather than authoritative. All Council forces, maintain formation, follow your orders. The hierarchy must be preserved. But his own officers were no longer listening. Throughout the Council fleet, beings were making the same choice that humanity had made 75 years ago: the choice to be free. Torres watched as the tide of battle became an avalanche of defection. Ship after ship abandoned the Council cause and joined the Alliance. Not because they were conquered, but because they were offered something better than conquest: partnership. The Primarch, surrounded by its own people who had chosen freedom over domination, finally understood what it was truly facing. This was not a rebellion that could be crushed with superior force. This was an idea that had taken root across the galaxy, the idea that every being had the right to choose their own destiny. With a sound like reality sighing, the ancient energy being collapsed back into normal space. "The old order is ending," it admitted, its voice now carrying wonder instead of authority. Perhaps it is time. The battle for Earth was over. The Council fleet either joined the Alliance or retreated back to the core systems where the old hierarchy still maintained control. But everyone knew that control was temporary. The idea of freedom, once planted, grew like wildfire. Torres stood on his bridge, looking out at Earth surrounded by ships from dozens of species, not as conquerors, but as protectors of the world where the Alliance had been born. "Admiral," Commander Jung said quietly, "we are receiving transmission requests from over 200 Council worlds. They want to know how to join the Alliance." Torres smiled. Humanity had been exiled for being too dangerous to the old order. They had been right about the danger, but they had been wrong about everything else. The exiles had come home, and they brought with them the most dangerous thing of all: proof that a better way was possible. The galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Elizabeth Chen stood at the center of the new Galactic Assembly. But this was not the same chamber where her grandmother Sarah had been exiled 80 years ago. That crystal cathedral of the old Council had been transformed into something unprecedented, a vast spherical space where thousands of beings from across the galaxy could meet as equals. No raised platforms, no floating thrones, no hierarchy of seating based on species or age or power, just concentric circles of delegates all at the same level, all with equal voices in the greatest democracy the galaxy had ever seen. Elizabeth was now 45 years old and had been elected Speaker of the Free Galactic Federation by representatives from over 3,000 worlds. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had grown up in freedom, not exile. To her, cooperation between species was not a radical experiment. It was simply the natural order of things. "Friends and colleagues," she began, her words translated simultaneously into over 800 languages by technology that combined Nexari neural interfaces with Voidwalker dimensional communication and human linguistic algorithms. "We gather today to mark the 5th anniversary of the Liberation Wars and the establishment of our Federation. But more importantly, we gather to plan for a future that our ancestors could barely imagine." The Assembly responded with the sounds of approval from thousands of different species. Some applauded in the human fashion, others made harmonic tones, flashed bioluminescent patterns, or simply radiated emotional satisfaction in ways that only telepathic species could detect. Elizabeth activated the central holographic display, which showed a map of the galaxy unlike any that had existed before. Instead of the rigid territorial boundaries of the old Council system, it showed a network of interconnected worlds linked by quantum tunnel routes and trade agreements. "The Federation now includes species from every corner of the galaxy," she continued. "From the core worlds that once served as the Council's seat of power, to the rim territories where humanity and other exiles first found freedom, to regions of space that were thought uninhabitable until our combined technologies made settlement possible. She paused to look around the assembly, seeing faces and forms that represented the incredible diversity of galactic life. Zephyrian crystal beings sat next to Skarn warriors. Vorthan individuals, no longer bound to hive minds, worked alongside Etherian energy forms. Former Cronin military officers shared data with Nexari tech specialists. And throughout the assembly, humans served not as leaders or rulers, but as the bridges that helped all these different peoples work together. But our success brings new challenges, Elizabeth continued, her tone becoming more serious. Reports from our deep space exploration fleets indicate that we are not alone in the universe. Beyond our galaxy lie others, some friendly, some hostile, and some utterly alien to everything we understand about life itself. The assembly grew quiet as she activated new sections of the holographic display. These showed star maps that extended beyond the galactic edge, where Federation scout ships had made contact with civilizations that defied easy classification. Admiral Sarah Torres, great-granddaughter of the legendary Marcus Torres, stepped forward to deliver the military briefing. At 38, she commanded the Federation's exploration fleets with the same skill her ancestor had shown in defending Earth. Our scouts have identified 3 major extragalactic civilizations, Admiral Torres reported. The Harvesters appear to be a machine intelligence that consumes entire star systems to fuel their expansion. The Collective is a hive mind species that absorbs other civilizations rather than destroying them. And the Architects seem to be building something on a galactic scale, though we have no idea what or why. Representative Grakor of the Skarn Honor Guard stood up, his massive form casting shadows across nearby delegates. He was the son of war leader Grakth, who had died defending a refugee convoy from Harvester scouts 10 years earlier. The Skarn have faced each of these threats in battle, he announced in a voice that carried the controlled fury of a warrior species that had learned to fight smart as well as hard. The Harvesters cannot be reasoned with. They see all organic life as resources to be consumed. The Collective offers what appears to be peaceful absorption, but their victims lose all individual identity. The Architects ignore all attempts at communication while reshaping entire solar systems according to their unknown plans. Nexari Coordinator Zix Prime activated her cybernetic implants, her enhanced consciousness accessing data streams from across the galaxy. Federation intelligence networks have confirmed these threats, she reported, her electronic voice carrying undertones of concern that her people had learned to express. More significantly, all 3 civilizations appear to be aware of our galaxy and are taking active interest in our development. Our rapid expansion and technological advancement have made us visible to entities that previously ignored this region of space. Elder flows like starlight, one of the senior Etherian representatives, shifted from their normal energy cloud, form into something more solid so their words would carry greater weight. My people have consulted the deep currents of space-time, the ancient being, communicated directly into the minds of the assembled delegates. These threats are connected to a larger pattern that extends across the universe itself. Our galaxy sits at the intersection of forces that have been building for millions of years. What we do in the coming decades will determine not just our own survival, but the fate of countless civilizations across multiple galaxies. Elizabeth nodded grimly. The Federation had grown from a small alliance of exiled species into the dominant power in their galaxy in just 80 years. But that growth had attracted attention from entities that made the old council look like children playing with toys. Which brings us to the central question, Elizabeth said. How do we defend not just our own freedom, but the right of all thinking beings to choose their own destiny? How do we stand against forces that could destroy or absorb our entire galaxy? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Vasquez's grandson, Dr. Michael Vasquez, was now the Federation's chief science officer. His research team included representatives from every member species, working together to push the boundaries of what science could achieve. The same way humanity and its allies survived exile, he said, as he stood up from his seat in the science section, by doing what our enemies do not expect, by cooperating instead of competing, by turning our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. He activated his own holographic display, showing technical diagrams that would have been impossible to understand without the combined knowledge of hundreds of species. For the past 5 years, My team has been working on what we call the Unity Project, Dr. Vasquez explained. It combines human quantum tunnel technology with Nexari consciousness interfaces, Etherian energy manipulation, Voidwalker dimensional navigation, Skarn tactical doctrine, and innovations from 37 other species. The result is something that has never existed in the universe before. The technical diagrams resolved into the image of a space station unlike anything ever built. It was not just large. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, connected to every major world in the Federation through quantum tunnels that could transport entire fleets instantaneously. Unity Station would serve as more than a military base, Dr. Vasquez continued. It would be a living symbol of what cooperation can achieve. A place where the combined knowledge and abilities of every Federation species could be focused on solving problems that no single civilization could handle alone. Representative Keth Prime of the reformed Zephyrian Republic stood up, his crystal body refracting light in patterns that indicated deep thought. The mathematical models are sound, he announced after running calculations through his species' natural crystalline processing matrix. Such a station would give us capabilities that exceed any known technology, but the resource requirements would strain even our expanded industrial capacity. War Commander Thane Ka of the Free Vorthan Worlds clicked her mandibles in a pattern that indicated determined optimism. Her people had thrived since breaking free from hive mind control and embracing individual thought. The Free Vorthans pledged the output of 12 manufacturing systems to this project, she declared. Our people understand the value of unity through choice rather than unity through force. Around the assembly, similar pledges began pouring in. Species that had once been enemies offered to work together on a scale never before attempted. Former Council worlds provided resources. Rim territory colonies offered their unique technologies. Even species that had only recently joined the Federation committed their entire industrial capacity to the project. Elizabeth watched with amazement as the galaxy's most diverse civilization came together around a single goal. It was exactly the kind of cooperation that humanity had always believed was possible, but seeing it happen on such a scale was still breathtaking. But even as the assembly made its commitments, warning signals began flashing on the strategic displays. Admiral Torres received an urgent communication from the Deep Space Monitoring Networks. Madam Speaker, the Admiral announced, her voice cutting through the excited discussions. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward our galaxy. All 3 extra-galactic civilizations appear to be mobilizing their full forces. The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. The Federation's rapid growth and the announcement of the Unity Project had apparently triggered a response from the very entities they were preparing to face. Elizabeth felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her great-grandmother Sarah had stood alone against the Council's judgment. Her grandmother Maria had built the first alliances between exiled species. Her mother had helped win the liberation wars. Now it was her turn to face the greatest challenge in galactic history. Then we have no time to waste, she declared. All Federation resources will be committed to the Unity Project immediately. Construction will begin simultaneously at 100 different sites across the galaxy. We will build not just a station, but a network, a living representation of what free beings can accomplish when they work together. She looked around the assembly one final time, seeing determination on every face and in every alien expression. The harvesters believe that consumption equals strength. The collective believes that uniformity equals peace. The architects believe that imposition equals order. We will show them something they have never encountered: strength through diversity, peace through freedom, and order through choice. The assembly erupted in approval that could be felt as well as heard. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species united not by conquest or force, but by the simple belief that every thinking being deserved the right to choose their own destiny. As the delegates began filing out to begin the greatest construction project in galactic history, Elizabeth remained in the chamber for a few quiet moments. She thought about her great-grandmother, standing alone in the council chamber 80 years ago, defying the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Sarah Chen had told them that humanity would return stronger than before. She had been right, but she could never have imagined how much stronger. Humanity had not just survived exile. They had used it to build something that surpassed every empire that had ever existed. Not an empire built on domination, but an empire built on freedom. Not a civilization maintained by force, but a federation held together by choice. Not a hierarchy where some ruled and others served, but a true democracy where every voice mattered. The Exiled had become the foundation of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. And now, as threats gathered beyond the stars, that civilization would face its ultimate test. Elizabeth smiled as she walked toward the chamber's exit. Her great-grandmother had been right about humanity being dangerous to the old order, but the real danger had not been chaos or violence or rebellion. The real danger had been hope. The hope that things could be better. The hope that freedom was worth fighting for. The hope that cooperation could achieve what conquest never could. That hope had spread from a single exiled species to encompass an entire galaxy. Soon it would spread even further. The universe was about to discover what happened when free beings stood together against impossible odds. And Elizabeth Chen, great-granddaughter of exiles, speaker of the Free Galactic Federation, was ready to show them exactly how dangerous hope could be. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning at Earth Central Command. Commander Jack Miller stared at the holographic display, reading the formal invitation from the Galactic Council for the third time. His weathered face, marked by years of space travel and countless battles, remained expressionless, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "They want us to bring our fleet to their military showcase," he said finally, looking up at the gathered officers in the command room. "All species will display their latest warships." Lisa Reed, Earth's chief diplomatic officer, stepped forward. Her practical uniform contrasted with the elaborate diplomatic robes she usually wore when meeting alien representatives. "It's not just an invitation, Commander," Lisa said, her voice calm but concerned. "It's a test. The Council wants to see where we stand compared to other species." Jack nodded slowly. Earth had joined the galactic community only 30 years. Ago, a mere blink of an eye in cosmic terms. Most alien civilizations had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans left their solar system. "What ships should we bring?" asked Tom Wilson, the head engineer who had worked on human vessels for over 20 years. His hands, calloused from manual repairs despite the availability of automated systems, fidgeted with a small mechanical part he always carried. Lisa glanced at the reports on her tablet. "The Council expects us to bring our newest ships. They're curious about human technology." Jack stood and walked to the window overlooking the massive shipyard orbiting Earth. Dozens of vessels floated in neat rows, from small patrol ships to massive carriers. Some gleamed with newness while others showed the marks of years of service. "No," Jack said after a long pause. "We won't bring our newest ships." The room fell silent. Lisa stepped closer to him, concern written across her face. "Jack, if we don't showcase our best technology, they'll think we're even further behind than they already believe. The Council already sees us as primitive newcomers." Jack turned, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips. "Exactly, and we'll let them keep thinking that." 3 days later, Lisa sat across from Blue, the Council's diplomat assigned to Earth. Blue's skin had a faint azure tint that gave the species its nickname among humans. The alien's real name was a series of musical tones impossible for human vocal cords to produce. They met in a neutral space station orbiting Jupiter, a common meeting point for human-alien diplomatic discussions. The station's artificial gravity was set slightly lower than Earth standard as a compromise for various species. "I must admit," Blue said, sipping a liquid that smelled like mint and motor oil, "we were surprised by your selection of ships for the showcase." Lisa kept her face neutral, years of diplomatic training coming into play. "Oh? What surprises you about it?" Blue's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Lisa had learned indicated amusement or condescension, often both. "The heritage. Fleet? Ships that have been in service for over 40 Earth years?" Blue made a musical sound that the translator didn't bother converting, clearly laughter. "Most species will be bringing vessels constructed within the last 5 standard cycles. Technology advances quickly." Lisa smiled politely. "We're proud of our heritage fleet. Those ships have history. History won't help much against modern defenses," Blue replied. "But we appreciate Earth's participation nonetheless. It's important for younger species to observe and learn from the more established civilizations. After Blue left, Lisa sent an encrypted message to Jack. They're underestimating us exactly as you predicted. In the orbital shipyard above Mars, Jack walked through the cavernous bay of the Resilient, his chosen flagship for the mission. The vessel had first launched when Jack was just a boy, and had been upgraded countless times since then. To an outsider, it looked outdated, its hull marked with repair patches and lacking the sleek lines of newer ships. Kate Davis, the weapons specialist assigned to the mission, fell into step beside him. Her short, practical haircut and focused expression matched her no-nonsense attitude. "The Resilience weapons systems are ready," she reported. "We've reinstalled the older missile tubes as requested, and the energy cannons have been modified to look less efficient than they actually are." Jack nodded approvingly. "And the shields?" "Configured to appear as standard protection fields. The adaptive systems are hidden beneath 3 layers of security protocols. They won't detect them unless they're specifically looking. And they won't be looking because they don't think we have that technology." They continued their inspection, passing crew members preparing for the upcoming journey. Unlike the uniform, perfection seen on newer vessels, the Heritage Fleet crews were a mix of veterans and specialists, each chosen for experience rather than appearance. In the engine room, they found Tom hunched over an open panel, his hands deep in the ship's core systems. "How are the modifications coming along?" Jack asked. Tom straightened up, wiping grease from his hands. "Almost done, Commander. From the outside, these will register as standard fusion drives from our early space era. Only someone physically examining them would discover they're actually our latest hybrid engines." "Good," Jack said. "Remember, everything about these ships needs to look functional but outdated." As they finished their inspection tour and returned to the bridge, Alan Parker, the communications officer, approached with a concerned expression. "Sir, we've received the final roster of participating species. There will be 23 different civilizations showcasing their military vessels." He handed Jack a tablet with the list. "Some of these species have been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. Jack scanned the list, recognizing most names from briefings and historical records. The Galactic Council comprised the 7 oldest spacefaring races, with others like humans having varying levels of representation based on their technological advancement and territorial holdings. "Look at these specs they've provided," Alan continued, pointing at the attached files. "The Varel ships use quantum phase technology. The Argosy fleet has temporal shielding. We can't compete with this." Jack handed the tablet back with a calm expression. "We're not trying to compete with their technology, Alan. We're playing a different game entirely." Later that evening, as the Earth grew smaller in the viewports, Jack stood alone on the observation deck. The Heritage Fleet, 12 ships of varying sizes, all bearing the marks of long service, formed up around the Resilient. Lisa joined him, watching the blue planet fade into the distance. "The council representative called our ships charming antiques," she said. Jack chuckled. "Perfect, let them think that." Lisa turned to face him. "You really believe this will work? That our old ships will impress the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy?" Jack's eyes reflected the starlight as he looked out into the vastness of space. "These ships have something their shiny new vessels don't," he said quietly. "They've survived. They've adapted. They've evolved." He placed a hand on the cool metal of the viewport frame. "Just like humanity." The fleet accelerated, leaving Earth's solar system behind as they set course for the galactic core, where the most powerful civilizations in known space waited to be shown just how dangerous underestimating humans could be. Space stretched endlessly before the Heritage Fleet as they traveled toward the galactic core. The stars blazed like diamonds against the black void, growing denser as they approached the heart of the galaxy. Commander Jack Miller stood on the bridge of the Resilient, watching the main view screen with calm focus. 3 weeks of travel completed, announced Alan from his communication station. "We're making good time, Commander." Jack nodded. "Any word from the Council?" "They've sent updated coordinates for the showcase arena," Alan replied, tapping on his screen. They seem surprised we're keeping pace with the expected timeline. Lisa, who had been studying reports at a nearby console, smiled slightly. They probably expected our outdated engines to delay us. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The Heritage fleet might appear old on the outside, but beneath the worn hulls and visible repair patches lay technology that was far from obsolete. Tom's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Commander, you might want to come down to engineering. We're having some issues with the primary cooling system." 20 minutes later, Jack stood in the engine room, which hummed with the deep vibration of the massive drives pushing the Resilient through space. Unlike the sterile automated engine rooms of newer vessels, this one was crowded with equipment, tools, and busy crew members. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Tom pointed to a large panel displaying the ship's cooling system. "Look here. The external sensors are showing what appears to be an inefficient cooling cycle. If any alien vessels scan us, they'll see exactly what we want them to see. An outdated cooling system struggling to keep up." Jack studied the readouts. "But the actual system is running at peak efficiency?" "Better than peak," Tom grinned, wiping his hands on a rag. "I've made some modifications. We're actually running 23% cooler than our newest ships back home, but no one would know without a physical inspection." "Good work," Jack said, clapping Tom on the shoulder. On his way back to the bridge, Jack passed the training deck where Kate was drilling a team of weapons specialists. Through the observation window, he watched as she directed a simulation of an old-style missile launch sequence. "Target acquired. Launching missiles 1 through 4, called out one of the younger officers, his fingers dancing across a control panel that looked intentionally bulky and outdated. Kate nodded in approval, but then barked, "Too fast. Remember, we're supposed to have slower targeting systems. Add a 3-second delay between target lock and firing sequence." The young officer adjusted his approach, deliberately slowing down what would normally be an instantaneous process. Kate noticed, Jack watching, and stepped away from the training to join him in the corridor. "How's it going?" Jack asked. "They're getting the hang of it," Kate replied. "It's challenging for the newer recruits. They've trained on automated systems their whole careers, and now they have to pretend they're using technology from 40 years ago. But underneath the act," Kate smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "Underneath, we have targeting systems that could thread a needle from 1,000,000 miles away. The missiles look like our old M17s, but they've got the newest guidance packages, hidden inside the old casings." Jack nodded with satisfaction. "Keep up the good work. We need everyone perfect in their roles before we reach the showcase." Later that night, in the ship's mess hall, Jack sat with Lisa and Alan, sharing a quiet meal away from the rest of the crew. The room was less crowded than usual, with most personnel either on duty or resting for their next shift. "I've been reviewing the data on the species we'll encounter," Lisa said, pushing a tablet across the table. "Some interesting patterns." Jack scrolled through the information. "What am I looking for?" "Notice how each species showcases their technology. The Vrel always emphasize their quantum phasing. The Argosy their temporal shields. Each race has 1 or 2 standout technologies they're proud of. And they all know about each other's specialties," Alan added. "It's like an unspoken agreement. Each civilization has their niche." Jack set the tablet down. "And where do they think humans fit?" Lisa leaned forward. "That's just it. They don't know yet. We're the newcomers, the unknown factor. Some of the council members think we might specialize in biological technologies, given our rapid physical adaptation to different environments. Others suspect we might have unique approaches to AI or computer systems. None of them have guessed our real strength," Jack said quietly. "Which is?" Alan asked. "Integration," Jack replied. "Humans don't excel at creating brand new technologies better than anyone else. What we do better than any species in the galaxy is take existing ideas and combine them in ways no one else has considered." Before they could continue their discussion, the ship's alert system activated with a soft chime. "Bridge. To Commander Miller," came the duty officer's voice over the comm. Jack tapped his communication badge. "Miller here." "Sir, We've detected an approaching vessel on an intercept course. It's a Cortax patrol ship. Jack exchanged glances with Lisa and Alan before all three hurried to the bridge. When they arrived, the main screen showed a sleek silver vessel approaching rapidly. The Cortax were one of the younger council races known for their territorial nature and impressive scanner technology. "They're hailing us, Commander," said the communications officer. "On screen," Jack ordered, straightening his uniform. The screen flickered and the image of a Cortax officer appeared. The alien had smooth gray skin with subtle ridges along its neck and a sharp, beak-like mouth. Its four eyes blinked independently as it studied the human bridge crew. "Earth vessel," the Cortax said, its translator giving its voice a metallic quality. "This is Security Captain Moore of the Galactic Council Border Patrol. State your purpose in this sector." Jack stepped forward. "I am Commander Jack Miller of the Earth Heritage Fleet. We are en route to the Galactic Showcase by official invitation from the Council." The Cortax officer's eyes narrowed. "The Heritage Fleet? Ah, yes. The human historical vessels." There was unmistakable dismissal in its tone. "Our scans detect outdated propulsion and defensive systems. Do you require assistance to reach your destination?" "No, thank you, Captain," Jack replied with a polite smile. "Our old ships are serving us just fine." "As you wish," Moore said. "However, protocol requires we inspect all vessels heading to the showcase. Prepare for a scanning beam." Lisa stepped closer to Jack, speaking quietly. "Standard procedure, but their scans are more detailed than most. Should we be concerned?" "Not at all," Jack murmured back. "Tom assured me our modifications would hold up to external scanning." A pale blue light washed over the Resilient as the Cortax ship circled them slowly. "Scanning complete," announced Moore after several tense minutes. "Your vessels appear functional if primitive. You may proceed to the showcase." The alien's mouth parts twitched in what might have been amusement. "Though I must say, Commander, I'm curious what you hope to achieve by bringing such outdated technology to the demonstration." Jack maintained his pleasant expression. "Sometimes old tools have unexpected uses, Captain Moore." After the Cortax ship departed, the bridge crew relaxed visibly. "They bought it," Alan said, sounding relieved. Jack turned to the navigation station. "Resume course to the showcase, maximum speed." He allowed himself a small smile. We wouldn't want to be late for our debut. As the Heritage Fleet continued its journey toward the galactic core, the stars grew ever more numerous in the view screen. Somewhere ahead, the most powerful civilizations in known space were preparing to showcase their military might, completely unaware that the seemingly obsolete human fleet would soon change their understanding of warfare forever. The Galactic Showcase Arena came into view as the Heritage Fleet emerged from their final jump point. Jack stood motionless on the bridge, taking in the massive structure that hung in space before them. The arena was a marvel of engineering, a colossal ring-shaped construct orbiting a neutron star, its surface gleaming with lights that formed shifting patterns across its metallic skin. "It's enormous," Alan whispered, awe evident in his voice. Lisa nodded. "The Showcase Arena is said to be one of the oldest structures in the galaxy. The Council races built it over 5,000 years ago as a neutral ground for military demonstrations." The Resilience Communications panel chimed. "Commander," said the officer on duty, "we're receiving docking instructions and our showcase schedule." Jack moved to review the information. "When are we scheduled to present?" "Last, sir," the officer replied. "After all, 22 other species have completed their demonstrations." Lisa frowned. "That's deliberate. They've placed us in the position of least importance." "Or they're saving the best for last," Jack said with a slight smile. "Inform the fleet to begin docking procedures, and remind all crew members, maintain the act at all times." The Heritage Fleet approached their designated docking areas, their thrusters firing with visible puffs of exhaust, an intentional inefficiency that made their maneuvering appear clumsy compared to the sleek, silent movements of the alien vessels already docked. As they secured the ships, Jack, Lisa, and Kate prepared to attend the opening ceremony. They wore their formal Earth uniforms, practical blue and gray outfits that lacked the ornate decorations or technological enhancements visible on the clothing of other species. "Remember," Jack said as they stood at the airlock, "we're here to observe and learn. Ask questions. Look impressed. Don't reveal anything about our true capabilities." The massive docking bay was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some species Jack recognized from briefings: the tall, willowy Argosy with their shimmer suits that bent light around them, the six-limbed Vrel whose bodies pulsed with subtle quantum shifts, the insectoid Trill whose compound eyes reflected rainbows of light. Others were new to him, creatures of such alien form that he could barely determine which parts were body and which were clothing or technology. Admiral Vex of the Cortax, the current head of the Galactic Council's military division, stood on a raised platform at the center of the bay. Unlike Captain Moore from the patrol ship, Vex had golden markings along their neck ridges, signifying high rank. "Representatives of the galaxy's military forces," Vex's amplified voice echoed through the chamber. "Welcome to the 73rd Galactic Showcase. Here we celebrate the pinnacle of each civilization's defensive capabilities and share in the collective advancement of our galactic community." Vex's four eyes scanned the crowd, pausing briefly on the human delegation. "We have a special addition this cycle, representatives from Earth, one of our newest members. They have brought what they call their heritage fleet for demonstration." A ripple of what sounded like amusement passed through the alien crowd. "Now let us proceed to the observation deck for the first demonstrations. The Argosy temporal fleet will begin, followed by the Vrel quantum armada." As the crowd moved toward the massive observation deck, Jack and his team found themselves approached by a group of Trill representatives, their chitinous bodies clicking as they moved. "Humans," the lead Trill said through its translator, mandibles, moving rapidly. "We have studied your ships during docking. Fascinating use of combustion technology. Very traditional." Kate maintained a pleasant expression. "Our heritage fleet has served Earth well for many years." "Indeed," the Trill responded, its compound eyes reflecting the human's images. "But surely you don't expect such primitive vessels to impress at this gathering? Some species here have ships that can bend space-time itself." Before Kate could respond, Lisa stepped in smoothly. "We're primarily here to learn. Earth recognizes it has much to gain from observing more advanced technologies." The Trill seemed satisfied with this appropriately humble response and moved away. Kate exhaled slowly. "I wanted to tell them our primitive ships could run circles around their flashy spacebenders," she muttered. "You'll get your chance," Jack replied quietly. "Patience." The observation deck was a vast chamber with transparent walls offering a panoramic view of space. The neutron star provided a dramatic backdrop, its intense blue-white light controlled by the arena's protective filters. In the center of the deck, a holographic display showed the demonstration area, a section of space equipped with various obstacles, targets, and sensor arrays to measure performance. Admiral Vex took position at the control center. "The demonstrations will proceed in order of Council seniority. Each species will have 30 minutes to showcase their vessel's capabilities." For the next several hours, Jack and his team watched as the galaxy's most advanced warships performed incredible feats. The Argosy vessels seemed to predict attacks before they happened, their temporal shields creating bubbles where time itself slowed to a crawl. The Vrel ships phased in and out of reality, becoming ghostly images that weapons passed through harmlessly before solidifying to return fire. The Cortax demonstrated sensor arrays so precise they could detect a single atom out of place, while the Trill showcased biological ships that could heal damage in seconds. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last, drawing gasps and applause from the gathered representatives. Throughout it all, Jack watched with intense focus, occasionally making notes on a simple paper notebook. A deliberately archaic choice that drew curious glances from nearby aliens used to advanced data devices. Lisa leaned close during the Praxian demonstration of energy weapons that could disrupt molecular bonds. "You've been quiet. What are you thinking?" Jack kept his voice low. I'm thinking that every single one of these impressive technologies has a fundamental weakness. The Argosy temporal shields create tremendous energy signatures before activation, a 3-second warning before they engage. The Vrel quantum ships can't fire weapons while phased. You're looking for weaknesses in supposed allies? Lisa asked, sounding concerned. Jack shook his head slightly. I'm observing patterns. Every species here has specialized in one or two incredible technologies, but they've neglected basics in the process. They're so focused on their specialties that they've created blind spots. As the demonstrations continued, Admiral Vex periodically announced scores and measurements, with each species trying to outdo the others in specific categories. The competition was friendly but intense, with clear rivalry between certain civilizations. Finally, after nearly all species had presented, Vex approached the human delegation. The Admiral's expression held barely concealed condescension. Earth representatives, your demonstration is scheduled next. However, given the nature of your vessels, perhaps you would prefer to simply observe the remaining presentations. There would be no shame in withdrawing from the demonstration portion. Jack stood straight, meeting the Admiral's four-eyed gaze directly. We appreciate your concern, Admiral Vex, but Earth will proceed with our demonstration as scheduled. Vex's neck ridges flattened, a sign of surprise among the cortex. As you wish, Commander Miller. Your fleet should move into position within the next 20 minutes. As Vex walked away, Kate turned to Jack. They're expecting us to embarrass ourselves. Perfect, Jack replied with a calm smile. That's exactly what we want them to expect. He tapped his communication badge. Miller, to all Heritage Fleet captains. Prepare for demonstration sequence. Initial protocol. Show them exactly what they expect to see. At first. The human crew returned to their ships, passing groups of alien representatives who watched them with expressions ranging from pity to amusement. No one noticed the subtle look of anticipation that passed between the humans as they prepared to turn the galaxy's expectations upside down. The Heritage Fleet moved into position in the demonstration zone, thrusters puffing visibly as they arranged themselves in a simple formation. From the observation deck, the gathered alien representatives watched with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to barely concealed derision. Look at those exhaust patterns, one Trill representative chittered to another. They're still using chemical propellants for maneuvering. Admiral Vex stood at the control center, four eyes blinking in sequence as they addressed the crowd. We now present the Earth Heritage Fleet for their demonstration. As our newest galactic members, humans have brought vessels they consider historically significant. The Admiral's voice carried a note of indulgence, as one might use when watching a child's crude attempt at art. On the bridge of the Resilient, Jack settled into the command chair and surveyed his crew. Each officer sat at their station, focused and ready. Communications, Jack said calmly. Open a channel to all Heritage Fleet vessels. Alan nodded. Channel open, Commander. This is Miller. Execute first demonstration sequence. Standard maneuvers only. Remember, look good, but not too good. The Heritage Fleet began their demonstration with basic formation flying. Nothing that would impress the gathered aliens, but executed with military precision. Their movements were deliberate, almost plodding compared to the fluid grace of the other species' vessels. In the observation deck, Lisa stood with the other Earth diplomats, listening to the murmured comments around them. Such rigid patterns, an Argosy diplomat commented. No temporal flexibility at all. Their reaction time is measurable in full seconds, a Cortex officer added. Our vessels respond in microseconds. Lisa maintained a neutral expression, though she caught the eye of a human diplomat nearby who gave her the smallest of winks. After 10 minutes of increasingly complex but still fundamentally basic maneuvers, Admiral Vex's voice came over the communication system. Earth Heritage Fleet, your basic capabilities have been noted. However, we typically include more challenging demonstrations. Perhaps you would care to attempt the asteroid navigation course. There was a pause before Jack's voice replied, sounding appropriately hesitant. We would be honored to attempt the course, Admiral. A ripple of surprise moved through the alien observers. The asteroid course had been particularly challenging for several species, requiring split-second timing and precise maneuvering through a dense field of fast-moving space debris. They can't be serious. A Vrel observer pulsed, its quantum-shifting body flickering with what might have been amusement. Their ships will be torn apart. Inside the Resilient, Jack turned to his navigation officer. Standard approach to the asteroid field. Once we're inside, he paused, allowing a small smile. Switch to real capabilities. The Heritage fleet approached the asteroid field slowly, their movements appearing cautious and uncertain. The first asteroids passed by, with the human ships making what seemed like last-minute corrections to avoid collisions. "They're barely managing," Admiral Vex commented to the crowd. "Their reaction time is—" The Admiral stopped mid-sentence as something changed. The human ships suddenly shifted from their plodding movements to a fluid dance through the asteroid field. Where moments before they had seemed to barely avoid collisions, now they wove through the densest clusters with impossible precision. What just happened? The Trill representative's mandibles clicked rapidly in confusion. On the bridge of the Resilient, Jack watched as his crew operated with practiced efficiency, their earlier pretense of struggling now abandoned. "Status report," Jack called out. "Navigator here. We're running on true controls now, sir. Analog backup systems fully engaged. Weapons station. All countermeasures ready if needed. Engineering reports all ships are performing at optimal levels, Commander." The Heritage fleet moved through the asteroid field not just with competence, but with an elegance that none of the previous demonstrators had shown. Where the alien vessels had relied on advanced technology to predict asteroid paths or phase through them, the human ships simply danced. In the observation center, the alien representatives had fallen silent, their earlier derision replaced by confusion and growing concern. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Vex demanded, turning to Lisa. "These vessels showed energy signatures consistent with outdated technology." Lisa smiled politely. "The Heritage fleet has been in service for many years, Admiral. During that time, we've made adjustments." Before Vex could respond, another alarm sounded. The Admiral turned back to the control panel. "Automatic weapons systems have activated in the asteroid field. This is the combat portion of the demonstration. Automated defense drones appeared in the asteroid field, firing energy weapons at the human vessels. The shots were designed to be registered by sensors, but cause no actual damage. Their shields will register the hits, but they won't be able to—" Vex began, then stopped as they watched the screens. The Heritage fleet didn't deploy energy shields like the other species had. Instead, the vessels performed rapid, unpredictable maneuvers, making themselves nearly impossible targets. When shots did come close, small point defense systems activated, intercepting the energy beams with simple reflective countermeasures. "Those are physical reflectors," a Vrel scientist observed with shock. "Not energy-based shields at all. They're using basic physics to deflect energy weapons." On the Resilient, Kate monitored the weapon systems with satisfaction. "Countermeasures functioning perfectly, Commander. The drones can't get a solid lock on us." Jack nodded. "Now let's show them something really interesting. Initiate defense pattern Miller 3. The Heritage fleet suddenly shifted formation. While continuing to navigate the asteroid field, the smaller vessels took positions around the larger ships, creating a protective screen. As drone attacks intensified, the fleet began to move as a single unit, the smaller ships intercepting attacks while the larger vessels provided covering fire with what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. In the observation center, the alien representatives watched in growing disbelief. "They're using physical ammunition," one commented incredulously. "Actual metal projectiles." "Yes," another replied, "but look at the accuracy. They're hitting drones moving at sublight speeds with non-energy weapons. That should be impossible." Admiral Vex's neck ridges had flattened completely, a sign of extreme surprise in Cortax physiology. This demonstration was designed to showcase advanced technology. The humans are using ancient methods. "Ancient," Lisa replied calmly, "but effective." As the Heritage fleet completed the asteroid course with a perfect score, Admiral Vex seemed to recover some composure. An impressive display of piloting, Commander Miller. However, the final test involves direct energy weapon defense. Without advanced shielding, I'm afraid your vessels would be at a significant disadvantage. There was a pause before Jack's voice came through the communication system, sounding almost amused. We're happy to participate in the energy weapon defense demonstration, Admiral. The humans in the observation center exchanged glances. This was the moment they had been preparing for. In the demonstration area, the Heritage Fleet formed a new configuration as the energy weapon platforms powered up. These platforms were designed to fire increasingly powerful energy beams, testing the limits of a ship's defensive capabilities. The first shots fired relatively low-powered beams that most advanced vessels could easily deflect. To the observer's surprise, the human ships didn't attempt to deflect them at all. Instead, the energy beams hit the hulls directly and seemed to disappear. What's happening? Vex demanded, checking the sensors. The energy readings, they're gone. The beams are being absorbed somehow. Tom's voice came through Jack's private communication channel. Hull absorption systems working perfectly, Commander. We're capturing 97% of the energy and redirecting it to our reserves. Excellent, Jack replied. Prepare for full demonstration in 3, 2, 1. As the energy weapon platforms fired their maximum power shots, the Heritage Fleet did something that left every alien observer speechless. The human vessel's hulls began to glow with the absorbed energy, and then, in perfect synchronization, redirected it outward in controlled bursts that precisely neutralized the incoming attacks. For the first time since the demonstrations began, the observation deck was completely silent. Admiral Vex stared at the sensor readings, all 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Impossible, the Admiral finally said. Those are 40-year-old vessels. By your own admission, they cannot possibly have this technology. Lisa stepped forward. Admiral, you misunderstand. The Heritage Fleet vessels are indeed 40 years old. But humans never stop improving what we build. These ships have been continuously upgraded, modified, and enhanced throughout their service. On the Resilience Bridge, Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he watched his crew perform exactly as trained. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. Let's show them what humanity really brings to the galaxy. The final sequence of the human demonstration left the observation deck in stunned silence. The Heritage Fleet had just completed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for vessels of their apparent technological level. Not only had they navigated the asteroid field with perfect precision, but they had also absorbed and redirected energy weapons that could have crippled ships twice as advanced. Admiral Vex stood rigid, neck ridges completely flat against their skin. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked out of sequence, a sign of extreme agitation among the Cortax. This demonstration is over, Vex announced abruptly. Earth representatives, please dock your vessels and join us in the council chamber immediately. As the Heritage Fleet returned to their docking positions, the alien representatives broke into urgent, hushed conversations. The humans in the observation deck maintained their composure, though a few allowed themselves small smiles of satisfaction. Lisa approached Admiral Vex. Is there a problem, Admiral? Vex's voice was tight with controlled emotion. Not a problem. Earth diplomat. Rather a significant misunderstanding that requires clarification. 1 hour later, Jack, Lisa, Kate, Tom, and Alan stood in the Grand Council chamber. Unlike the ornate meeting halls on Earth, this room was a perfect sphere with a platform in the center where the human team now stood. Around them, representatives from the 22 other species sat in tiered seats, looking down at the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. The 7 members of the Galactic Council occupied the highest tier. Admiral Vex sat among them, leaning forward to address the humans. Commander Miller, Vex began, your demonstration today was unexpected. You presented what you called a heritage fleet. Vessels you claimed were outdated by human standards. Yet these ships displayed capabilities that rival or exceed many of our most advanced technologies. Vex's voice hardened. This council demands an explanation. Were you deliberately concealing your true technological capabilities from the galactic community? Jack stood tall, his posture relaxed but confident. Admiral, honored council members, and representatives of the galaxy, I appreciate your concerns, but I must correct a misunderstanding. We never claimed our ships were technologically primitive, merely that they were older vessels with significant service history. Semantics, hissed a Trill representative. Your energy signatures, your visible propulsion systems, all suggested outdated technology. Jack nodded. Appearances can be deceiving. This is the first lesson of human military strategy. Never reveal your full capabilities until necessary. A murmur ran through the chamber. One of the council members, Avril, whose body constantly shifted between solid and translucent states, spoke next. If these are truly your older vessels, then we must ask, what do your newest ships look like? Jack exchanged a glance with Lisa before responding. That information remains classified, as I'm sure many of your own military advances do as, well, the chamber erupted in voices until Admiral Vex raised all four arms for silence. What I find most perplexing, Vex said, is how your vessels achieved what they did. Our scans detected no quantum phase technology, no temporal manipulation, no neural integration networks. How did primitive hull materials absorb energy weapons designed to penetrate advanced shields? Tom stepped forward, after a nod from Jack. If I may address the technical questions, Admiral. At Vex's gesture, Tom continued. The key isn't in creating entirely new technologies, but in combining existing principles in ways others haven't considered. Our hulls use a layered composite material that captures energy rather than resisting it. The principle is actually quite old, dating back to our early experiments with solar collection. As for our navigation abilities, Kate added, we use a combination of automated systems and manual piloting. When energy disruption weapons are detected, we can instantly switch to analog backup systems. Technology so old it's immune to modern interference. The Argosy representative, a tall being whose silver skin seemed to shimmer with internal light, leaned forward. But such basic approaches should not work against our advanced systems. Lisa smiled diplomatically. Yet they did. Perhaps because while you were all advancing in specialized directions, humans took a different approach. We never stopped improving the basics while we developed new technology. The council chamber fell quiet as the aliens considered this perspective. Finally, a previously silent council member spoke, an ancient being of the Marok species, whose crystalline body contained swirling gases that changed color as they thought. In my 3,000 years, the Marok said, their translator giving their voice a musical quality, I have observed many species join our galactic community. Each brings unique perspectives, but humans, the gases in their bodies swirled from deep blue to vibrant purple. Humans bring something I have not seen before, a willingness to look backward while moving forward. Admiral Vex seemed to consider this, their neck ridges slowly rising back to normal position. Commander Miller, while I cannot say I approve of your deception, I must acknowledge the effectiveness of your demonstration. The Admiral paused. It seems we have underestimated humanity. Jack nodded in acknowledgement. A common mistake, Admiral, but one that rarely happens twice. The formal meeting concluded with the Council agreeing to reassess Earth's standing in the galactic community. As the human team left the chamber, they found themselves approached by representatives from various species, many now eager to discuss possible technological exchanges. Later, on the observation deck overlooking the docked Heritage Fleet, Jack stood with Lisa watching the myriad alien vessels preparing to depart. Mission accomplished, Lisa said quietly. In one day we've changed how the entire galaxy sees humanity. Jack nodded. Not bad for a fleet of museum pieces. Speaking of which, Lisa turned to face him. When do you think Earth will reveal our actual current technology? Jack smiled, watching a group of alien diplomats studying the Resilient with new respect in their postures. Not anytime soon. Today we showed them what we could do with 40-year-old ships. Let them wonder what we could do with our current fleet. And what about the prototype vessels? Lisa asked, her voice dropping to a near whisper. The ones even most of Earth doesn't know about? Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes gleamed. Those will remain our secret a while longer. In poker terms, we showed them a decent hand today, but we're still holding our aces. Tom approached them, checking a small device in his hand. The fleet is ready for departure, Commander. All systems nominal and the crews are eager to head home. Jack took one last look at the massive showcase arena. It's been an educational visit for everyone, I think. As they walked back toward the docking bay, an Argosy diplomat stepped into their path. The willowy alien's skin shimmered with what humans had learned was an expression of respect. Commander Miller, the Argosy said, my government has authorized me to open discussions about possible military coordination with Earth. We find your perspective on technology integration most valuable. Jack smiled. We'd be honored to discuss cooperation. After all, we're all members of the same galactic community. After the Argosy departed, Kate joined them, barely containing her amusement. From dismissed newcomers to sought-after allies in one day. Not bad. The real work begins now, Lisa reminded them. Maintaining the balance between revealing enough to be respected while keeping enough secret to be safe. Jack nodded as they reached the Resilience airlock. A challenge humanity has faced throughout our history. We reveal what we must, conceal what we can, and always, always keep improving. As the Heritage Fleet departed from the showcase arena, messages flooded in from across the galaxy. Requests for meetings, offers of alliance, and invitations to diplomatic summits. Earth had arrived on the galactic stage not with the flashiest technology or the newest ships, but with something far more valuable, innovation that none had expected, and wisdom that few possessed.